Mike Owens here, joined today by Drew Dober, who returns to action 7th of October, facing Ricky Glenn, UFC Fight Night. Drew, always a pleasure, my man. How are things with you today?
Oh, things are great. I got a fight to prepare for, and this is gonna be my first fight as a father, so it's super motivating.
I did want to ask about that because as we've talked about off camera, you welcomed your baby daughter to the world, Sonia Dober, I
Yep.
believe, 1st of June. So congratulations. What is the biggest benefit of having a baby in the world for fight camp, and what's the biggest difficulty?
Um, Man, it's such a beautiful thing. Like it adds so much perspective. I mean, all the dads out there probably know that like just the feeling you get after she's born, it's hard to explain. The best part is, it puts things in perspective.
Hmm.
It's fighting isn't just for me now. Like fighting is for my family. But man, to quote the new champ Sean Strickland, man, that belt around your waist doesn't matter. Everything you do outside of it matters. And so it's really turned the volume down in my fighting, and really it's put that thing in perspective of just I fight for myself. I fight to feed my family. But yeah, it kind of lost a little bit of uh pressure, I guess,
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think the hardest part is just like that balancing act, because I'm a father and a fighter now, and so I'm required in two places. And what I've been learning is it doesn't matter how you feel. I could be hungry, tired, cranky, whatever. It doesn't matter. This little girl needs me no matter what, and she needs me in a positive and a happy, mentality. And so I guess that is a negative, but it's also bleeding into like a positive thing because now I'm coming into the gym and like I gotta have a positive attitude in the gym as well. And so, man, believe it or not, my daughter has taught me a lot.
I love it. Well, congratulations off the top subject of the fight. I know that's what we're here to talk about, but on a personal level, congratulations.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, we've got Ricky Glenn next month coming up. Have to be honest with you, Drew, a little bit of a strange matchup when I heard it was announced. You were coming off the top 15 fight against Matt Frevola. I know that Glenn's obviously coming off the loss. Just your overall opinions on the fight at hand and the kind of style matchup first and foremost.
It's a little lackluster. It's like just the matchup just isn't as exciting as I want it to be. But Ricky Glenn has been offered to me in the past. We were training for Ricky Glenn before he got injured, and instead I fought Terrence McKinney.
Yeah.
So he's been on the radar for a little while, and if I'm going to be honest, I'd much rather stay active than waiting for a better opportunity.
Yeah.
That's just like I love fighting, and so I told the UFC I'll be ready by the end of September, and this was the matchup that was presented to me, and yeah, I don't say no to fights, so it's Ricky Glenn.
Does it feel, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful to your opponent, but does this feel like a step down in competition at all?
Competition, no.
Mm.
It's a risk because that's what people think. People
Yeah.
think it's a step down to competition. But that main event, October 7th, Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. I mean, Ricky Glenn fought a draw to Grant Dawson, almost put him asleep in that
Yeah.
fight. So the thing with Ricky Glenn is he's talented and he's super tough, but no one's ever heard of him,
Mm.
And so it's a slight risk for me because I mean the dude is really talented, but not doesn't have any name value to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, I'm just trying to get into a fight.
Mm. Is it almost like a banana skin, if you like, a potential opponent that you could slip up on, and it might look like a worse loss than what it is, but on paper, Ricky Glenn's done a lot and shows a lot of skill, that it would actually be it wouldn't be as bad of a loss as maybe fans might give you.
Yeah, I mean,
Of
there's no easy fights in the UFC.
course.
Like if you make it in the UFC, like all the guys are tough. So yeah, I gotta bring in my A game. So my goal is that, I mean, I'm treating this guy like he's Islam Makhachev, like he's the best in the world. So I gotta treat him with respect. He's earned my respect just because I've seen his fights and he's super
Yeah.
tough. Now losing is not an option. Like I'm gonna beat this dude, and how I'm unsure, because I don't know what kind of Ricky Glenn's gonna show up, but we will find a victory.
Mm. And is when you prepare for your fights, Drew, I know a lot of fighters, or I know we've had this conversation before. We say that you prepare to be the best version of yourself, not to prepare too much for your opponent. Does your game plan change fight over fight? Is it obvious that most opponents are going to try and want to get you to the ground and get away from that piston like left hand?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's safe to assume that like a lot of guys are going to be wrestling as soon as I punch them in the mouth. Um, but a lot of my game plans have less to do with my opponent and more to do about what I need to
Of
do in
course.
this fight.
Yeah.
And so really my game plan isn't to watch out for that guy. It's more so how can I best showcase myself with this guy.
Mm.
So a lot of our game plans have really just this is what I need to do in this fight, regardless of the opponent.
Yeah, 100%. Just very quickly touching on the last fight, obviously the loss, coming off the loss to Matt Frevola back in May. I don't want to talk about it too much, but just what was your overall reflection? Now you've had a
Well,
couple of
let's
months.
talk about it. Like if you got questions, like
No, no,
absolutely.
I don't mean it like that. I just mean what is your overall thoughts on the fight? How do you kind of look back on how that went?
Um, you know, I think what happened was the same exact thing that happened with the Terrence McKinney fight. Like I just got caught, I dropped, but this time the referee stepped in, right?
Yeah,
Referee could have stepped in with the Terrence McKinney fight, but he didn't, and I was able to come back and win. This one, I probably could have came back and won, but Herb Dean stepped in. Now, technically, there's something to be said about believing your own hype. We got that talk on Twitter about I got the crimson chin, no one
hmm,
can put me away and this and that. And so I think I went in by kind of believing that like I was that durable, that we can like take whatever Matt throws at me. And that's not what got me to the rankings. That's not what got me to the knockout record. It's so I kind of got away from what, has made me successful. And I started just believing in my own toughness. And Frevola humbled me. So what I learned is we got to dance with the woman that brought you. We got to bring back the Dober that was trying to prove himself, trying to show, the world that like I'm talented, I'm a fighter, and this and that. So we went back to kind of what I used to do, and we just kind of cocked it up to we gave Frevola the win. He didn't take it.
hmm. I find it really interesting that you referenced kind of the granite chin that people talk about you and those. I think I remember seeing a YouTube video about top 10 best chins in the UFC, and statistically before the Dober fight, yours was ranked number one based upon headshots to knockdown ratio or something crazy like that. But it's a really interesting point that you specifically referenced that sentiment on Twitter, because I wouldn't have thought you would have seen that, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, I see the stuff on Twitter, and I can't speak for all fighters, but they see it too. I mean,
Mm.
let's talk about Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. Like, I don't know what was in Israel's mind, but you gotta also think like champions start believing in their own hype. They
Yeah.
start believing that like they're untouchable, and it's fueled by every fan's comments on the internet, and
Mm.
so yeah, I believe that a granite chin and a knockout, power, and I could walk right through Favola, and that was just a horrible mindset to have. And so yeah, we just had to fix that. And so um, I could beat Favola 9 out of 10 times, and so I can't wait for that rematch.
100%. I did want to talk about that as well, because there's kind of a juxtaposition with the Frevola fight on 2022. I would say that 2022 was arguably the best year of your career, with those three knockouts kind of especially with punctuated at the end with the Bobby
Mm-hmm.
Green knockout. What steps have you taken to kind of get back to the form that you had in 2022? Because as I mentioned, it was such a good year for your career.
Yeah, it actually was before 2022. It was what I was doing in 2021 and 2020. With my knockouts of Nazareth, my
Yeah.
knockout of
Yeah. True.
Alexander
True.
Hernandez. It was what was I doing to showcase my knockout ability, to like prove that I was a fighter. So it's like, what did I do to get myself into the rankings, and not what I was doing while I was there,
Mm.
And so we went back and we watched them film, and I kind of left some stuff in the past, kind of
Mm.
left it in the locker room. I was doing some stuff in my earlier fights that we kind of got away from. And so this camp, we brought it back. And now, man, I've been a killer in the gym again, and I can't wait to showcase it against Ricky Glenn.
I love it. I love it. You mentioned there as well the main event, Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. I think that's one of only 4 or 5 fights in the top 15 that are actually booked at the moment. Lightweight seems to be taking a little bit of a break in terms of bookings, people getting matched up. What are you made of the lightweight division currently?
Yeah, that's why I'm fighting Ricky Glenn, because all these guys up here, like they don't seem to want to fight and stuff. And man, every time I've been in the rankings, I have fought a man outside of the rankings
Yeah.
because I don't care who I fight. I'm just trying to fight as often as I can. And I think these lightweight fighters need to kind of take that little medicine. It's, man, this whole Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, like we've been waiting for about a year and a half for it. And all these guys, and like, what is Renato Miyokano doing? Like, like, and so like these guys in the top 15 are just kind of like being a little too patient, I think.
Yeah.
And so I just want to see some activity.
I speak to a lot of fighters and they talk about the change when you get to the top 15 and suddenly it's not worth taking that fight outside of the rankings because strategically that's not the right fight to get you to the belt. And it feels like there's 2 types of fighters once they get to the rankings. There's the guys like yourself who will take on all comers, will fight those guys outside the rankings, and there's those guys who want to strategically wait and get the right fight that suits them. Do you kind of agree with that? There's, in a lot of instances, you're either in I'll take any fight camp or I've got to wait for the right fight camp.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a political thing, and if you want to like find yourself, in the opportunity to like take a title fight or a #1 contender or the top 10, and for me, that's just boring, man. Like, I got in this sport to fight, like, and this is what I absolutely love, and we're not getting any younger, so I'm just trying to fight as often as possible. And so at the beginning of the year, man, I called out RDA, Jalen Turner, Dan Hooker. Like, I was trying to fight all these guys, Renato Miyokano. I was just calling people out, and nobody wanted to fight. So I took a fight with Matt Frevola. It didn't go my way, but I still pride myself in the idea that I will fight anybody. I don't care. I'm not above fighting anybody. And so, and we're going to keep doing that. And, with my fight with Ricky Glenn and whoever's available after the fight, just like I'd much rather have more fights than wait for like an opportunity.
Yeah, no, of course, and that makes total sense. And in many ways, it should be the way that more people should be. Maybe the sport would be a slightly easier place politically if people had that attitude. I guess the biggest fight that's taken place in your division since we last spoke was the BMF title back in July between your teammate Justin Gaethje, obviously being victorious against Dustin Poirier. What did you think of the second version of the BMF title that took place in Salt Lake City?
I mean, Justin Gaethje started fighting as a tactician. He started being more intelligent. And I think they showed it in like the UFC countdown and stuff like that, that the first time they fought, Justin Gaethje was just a wild man. And now he's like collected and more like technical. And he showcased it against Dustin Poirier, man. Justin Gaethje's a world-class fighter and he can push you away. And I was super surprised that he landed that head kick though. But
is that something he's caught you with in training? That's all.
No, he doesn't even throw them. Like, he literally just threw it in the fight and it worked out for him. So yeah, I love his character. I love the way he fights, and man, the fact that he's fighting a little bit more technically, he's a dangerous man.
The things such as BMF titles, do they interest you? The kind of, I don't want to say a novelty belt because it's not, it's got more significance than that, but those kind of super fights away from the world title, the world title chase, do they interest you at all?
It's fun. Like, the idea of it is fun. Like having the belt on my wall would be cool, but it's more so like fighting an equal and opposite opponent that like is on the caliber for that belt. It's I want to fight Dustin Poirier. Right. And if the BMF title is what makes that fight happen, then like, yes, that's what excites me. Like, and Dustin Poirier said it, like, he wants fights that scare him, but also excite him. And that's what the BMF title kind of represents. It's the Jorge Masvidal, Justin Gaethje, the Dustin Poirier, like the dangerous and exciting fighters.
Yeah.
And so the medal around my waist, it's all right. But like that caliber of a fight and that much excitement and having Dwayne Johnson, like, being there, like, just like, I want that level of fight. I want main events. I want to fight dangerous fighters. I want a spectacle and I want to make these moments, And so for me, that BMF title is where these moments come from. And so that would be exciting.
I know that you have a particular kind of emphasis. You want to make exciting fights. It's in some ways, I feel like after the conversations we've had, I get the sentiment that you would rather put on an exciting fight and lose than a boring fight and win in some aspects. Maybe not totally, because obviously paychecks come into that a little bit. But is there a particular person you look at 155 and go, me and him would be a certified banger, and I'd like to fight him at some point?
Yeah, Michael Chandler.
Chandler.
Yeah, I would love to fight Michael Chandler. I even said it to him in person. Like, I'd love to fight you, man. But yeah, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira would be a super fun one. Yeah, I'm like avoiding all the elite wrestlers in the lightweight division because I don't know, wrestling's a little boring to me. But who else? I'm trying to think. In the top 15, who else would be super exciting? I think a fight with Dan Hooker would be super exciting because I mean, Dan Hooker's tough. But that's why I like the lightweight division. It's just like so many high level entertaining fights.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't throw Conor McGregor out there, but yeah, that would be a fun one too.
Yeah, of course, 100%. For your bank account as much as for the fight, I presume.
Yeah, it'd be a blast. Plus that red panty night, like I'd cash that check.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. Just throwing out the title fight very quickly because I know when we last previewed this fight, when we last had our interview before Islam Charles won, you said that Islam was your guy to win this fight. Obviously, you've spent time in the cage with Islam. You talked about how good he was. So I presume you're sticking with Islam for your prediction for this fight. So I'll ask you instead, what do you think Charles needs to do differently to have a better result and to ultimately secure victory?
I think we're gonna go back to just believing your own hype. I think Charles Oliveira like felt like the champion, and so he kind of just disregarded Islam's abilities. So I think this fight he's gonna be a little bit more tuned in, a little bit more focused, and I think pushing the grappling, I think would be a way that Charles Oliveira could, because I think like a lot of guys that look at Islam Makhachev, they think he's such a fantastic grappler that the only way they're going to win is in the stand-up department, right? But what Volkanovski showed that if you disregard or disrespect Islam's grappling game and come at him with like the full MMA, both striking, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, then you can find more opportunities to win. Yeah. So I think Charles Oliveira doesn't need to keep the fight standing. He needs to implement like all three disciplines. Yeah. But I think it's going to be a harder fight this time around. But I do believe Islam's going to take the win, probably by decision.
Yeah, 100%. We'll turn the conversation back to yourself for one final question, Drew. And you can be as brief or as detailed as you like with this one. But what I would like you to do is give me a walkthrough of the perfect fight day. So what happens when you wake up in the morning on the 7th of October to when you go to sleep at night in a perfect world?
Man, I get to wake up and have a breakfast that I want versus a breakfast that I have to have, right? So just wake up, have that good breakfast, and just treat it like a regular Saturday. I like being around friends, family, fans. I love hanging out, talking, and just enjoying this opportunity to be in front of the people that give me the opportunity to fight for a living, right? Like, so just enjoying each and every moment, from eating breakfast to hanging out with my team to running into other UFC fighters at the hotel to running into fans, at the hotel or where we're at, and really just enjoying that Saturday. And then when it comes down to then that ride to the venue, getting that good warm up and feeling confident. And then the best part of all is that walkout and that 15 minutes in that cage where I get to showcase everything I've been working for, in front of millions of people. And ideally knock out Ricky Glenn, get that knockout record in the lightweight division, and celebrate with My family, my new daughter.
Wow, sounds like a perfect day, Drew. Well, listen, it's always a pleasure to get your time. It really is. Great to see you back in action in just over a couple of weeks' time. Wish you the best of luck for the fight, and thank you once again for speaking with me today.
Thank you.